Hello. This is a speedy video. There's so much I want to say about this play. It's really difficult to sum it all up. This is the first play that really got me excited about Shakespeare. I was 12 years old. I went to go see Shakespeare in the park. I was so excited by the performance of A Midsummer Night's Dream that I memorized Puck's final speech in the car on the way home from the park. We were the dorks who brought the complete works of Shakespeare with us to the production to follow along. Later, as an actor, I sort of hated that people did that. I was like, oh shoot, maybe I'll flub a line or something. But it was always done out of exuberance and excitement. And yeah, I left the performance that night thinking my life needs to change so that I can play Puck in A Midsummer Night's Dream. And I went on to play Puck and a lot of other things as well. So it was a pretty transformative evening for me. And I think the thing I'd like to talk about in this play is transformations, the ways in which experiences or ideas or images are in a state of flux where they're becoming something new. This is something that we see even in the very first images of the play. Theseus is telling Hippolyta that the moon is changing, but it has not changed yet. Oh, how slow this old moon wanes. It's like they can't get married until the new moon. They've decided this and they're just waiting for this new moon. It hasn't come yet. This is true in the first time we meet the fairies. Titania is talking about the fact that the weather has transformed, that it's changed. We've never seen weather like this before, and it's our fault this transformation is happening. All through the play, there's this enormous presence of nature, which is constantly changing. When you think of a flower going from a seed to a sprout to in full bloom, that flower is also the symbol, the object by which the magic of the play is performed. I mean, some of the magic. There's a fair amount of magic in this play, but the big plot point of magic, the juice of the magic flower being dropped in people's eyes, changing who they love. So there's something really lovely about that. I think it's also bringing in these questions about how love transforms us. There's so many transformations of these relationships throughout this play, so often sudden and direct and forced into happening by magical forces, which is really exciting and makes the plot of this play just a wild, wild time. But let's start by talking about the distinct social groups in this play. And a lot of the drama of the play comes with clashes between those groups, or interactions between those groups not going as planned or changing as they go. So the first group we see is the nobles of Athens. So we see Theseus and Hippolyta, Aegeus and his daughter Hermia, and she starts this new group that we also see of the lovers. So Hermia and Lysander are in love, but Demetrius is also in love with Hermia, and Helena is in love with Demetrius. So we've talked about love triangles in the past in this class. Today, when we talk about love triangles, we usually think of it being one character that has two characters in love with that one person. If you're reading The Hunger Games, it's Katniss. And then, Peeta and Gale are both in love with her. Who is she going to pick? But in Shakespeare, often the love triangle becomes a full triangle. So in Twelfth Night, we have Orsino in love with Olivia, in love with Cesario Viola, who's in love with Orsino. So it goes a whole circuit. Whereas in Midsummer, we start out with a love triangle the way people talk about it today, with two men both being in love with Hermia. Demetrius and Lysander both love Hermia. But it becomes a love rectangle. You start out with both men in love with Hermia. You get to the middle where both men are in love with Helena. Helena doesn't believe it, but it's still happening, right? And then by the end, it all sorts out. There's something really fascinating about how separable, how transformable those relationships are. They're in love, no, they're in love, no, they're in love, no, they're in love. And it all comes out in the wash. So we've got the nobles in Athens, the lovers. We also have the rude mechanicals. So the very first scene, Theseus is go call for entertainments for the revelries at our wedding. And the mechanicals, who are craftsmen, who weavers and tinkers and joiners, who's like a carpentry position, they all decide they're going to put on a play. The mechanicals have this interaction that they're already planning to have with the nobles of Athens, right? Like they're trying to impress the Duke, and if they do, they'll all be made men, and they think they're going to have money and advancement, but their means of doing it is like through theater. They're going to perform for the Duke, and it will change their lives. They don't expect to have interactions with the other like groups of characters in the play, but of course they do, including the fairies, who are another huge group with their own conflicts. There's sort of its own political dispute between the king and the queen and the fairies about a changeling boy, and so Oberon decides to get back at Titania by making her fall in love with something ridiculous. It's an odd plot, but this is his plot. In the meantime, we get the lovers and the mechanicals brought in this plot. So all the plots are getting mixed together, much the way the lovers are all getting mixed up together. Mechanicals do perform for the Duke at his wedding, but they also perform for the lovers because they show up there too. It doesn't seem to be a grand transformation of their lives, but they seem to have a wonderful time doing it. But the bulk of these interactions happen in the forest, in the woods. There's a lot of plays in which going into sort of a new space, a green space, is a place of transformation. This gets alluded to in Frozen 2, where Olaf is like, oh, a magical forest is a place of transformation. But this is true historically as well, and it's very much the case in this play that woods are a place of wildness. If nothing else, just the like sheer number of animals that are described as being in the forest. Serpents, bears, donkeys, wolves, dogs, owls, horses, hogs. To say nothing of the fairies, right? Who are Puck describes himself as being able to transform his shape into any number of things, from like household objects into fire, into not just transforming himself, but also transforming Bottom's body into having the head of an ass. So, yeah, wild stuff. And all these different perspectives means that people are seeing things with different eyes. This is something we see even in the first scene, where Hermia tells Duke Theseus, I would my father looked but with mine eyes. And he retorts, rather your eyes must with his judgment look. So there's already this like wanting to shift what people see with their eyes, which of course becomes quite literal when people are like sticking love juice into the eyes of people to change what they see. Super exciting, super interesting. Helena is distressed because even though everyone in Athens thinks she's as beautiful as Hermia, Demetrius doesn't think so, and he's the only one who's like opinion, whose like eyes she cares about. So if in his eyes she's not as beautiful, then she wishes her whole body were different. And there are all these different situations where this is happening when Bottom comes back to the mechanicals after he gets his ass's head put on him. His fellow mechanicals are freaking out. They say, Bottom, thou art changed. What do I see on thee? And Bottom says, what do you see? You see an ass head of your own, do you? Like, he is not able to even like imagine what other people are seeing of him. The next person who reacts to his appearance is Titania, saying, what angel wakes me from my flowery bed? So, to his friends, he's a monster, but to this new person he's never met, suddenly he's an angel. And there's this like amazing way in which how people see and what people love or are afraid of has no relationship to reason whatsoever. It's what Bottom says in reply to Titania when she says that she loves him. He says, I don't think you have a good reason for that. Methinks, mistress, you have little reason for it. And yet, to say the truth, reason and love keep little company nowadays. The more the pity that some honest neighbors will not make them friends. There are no honest neighbors in A Midsummer Night's Dream making reason and love better friends. They stay separated. They stay so separated that at the end of the play, when we have this transformation of the active theater that the mechanical's putting on their play. They try to reason with the audience, saying, don't judge us, we're just doing the best we can, but they say it so badly. Quince comes out to deliver his prologue, and he says, if we offend, it is with our goodwill. But everything he says in that speech makes sense if you punctuate it differently. So if instead of reading, if we offend, it is with our goodwill, you change the punctuation, the whole speech can be read pretty reasonably. Instead of, if we offend, it is with our goodwill that you should think we come not to offend, but with goodwill, to show our simple skill. That's the true beginning of our end. But marvel then we come, but in despite we do not come, as minding to content you. Our true intent is all for your delight. We are not here that you should hear repent you. The actors are at hand. By their show you shall know all that you are like to know. Like, it sounds pretty reasonable. But if you say it, if we offend, it is with our goodwill, that you should think we come not to offend, but with goodwill, to show our simple skill. That is the true beginning of our end. Marvel then, we come, but in despite. We do not come as minding to content you. Our true intent is all for your delight. We are not here, that you may hear repent you. The actors are at hand, and by their show you shall know all that you are like to know. So just put the punctuation in a different place, and suddenly all the pieces line up wrong, and he's telling them, it's too bad for you that the actors are here. We're trying to offend you, and it's probably going to end in our death. I don't know, like, everything he says gets mixed up not because of what precisely he's saying, but how he's saying it. His delivery of the words is so poor that the hecklers, the people watching, his like terrible audience, say he plays on it like a child on a recorder in sound but not in governance. But in that performance, the story of Pyramus and Thisbe is a story very similar to the story of the lovers. Pyramus and Thisbe want to be together, but their parents object, so they run away to the forest and get mauled by wild animals and kill themselves. Like, this is something so close to what happens with Lysander, with Hermia. It's like the tragic flip side of the comedy we've just seen. Except, even the tragedy is made comic by the performance, right? The actors are so bad at what they're doing that it becomes, like, instead of, they're trying so hard to make it tragic, that they've flipped it around and made it comedic instead. And at the end of the play itself, when Puck delivers his final epilogue, he's giving a version of that prologue to Pyramus and Thisbe. He's, like, Marjorie Garber talks about this. Puck is able to say the things that Quince is sort of trying to say with his prologue, that if you find our performance lacking, transform your own eyes. Transform what you see. If we shadows have offended, think but this, and all is mended, that you have but slumbered here, while these visions did appear, and our weak and idle theme no more yielding but a dream. Gentles, do not reprehend, if you pardon, we will mend. Just imagine it as a dream, and everything is fine. Like, transform your own eyes, transform your own imagination through the theater, and anything that could be seen as an offense can be seen as nonsense, as just a dream, as something you forget about when you wake up. And I find that really, really remarkable, because it's pulling the actions of the play out of the play. We talked about Falstaff living in the Platea, pushing out the most extreme examples of Platea is these prologues or epilogues where the audience is directly addressed, where they talk to the audience as the audience, and even ask for them to applaud at the end. Puck ends his speech by saying, "Give me your hands if we be friends, and Robin shall restore amends." And he's promising to make things better, but he's also asking for whatever people thought of the performance, that they give him the applause. It's so beautiful. Okay, that's all I'm going to say about it for now, but I'm looking forward to your comments, your questions, and we'll talk more about production choices in class. But yeah, thanks.